Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Omar Khalid. But today is the 4th of November 2024 and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We will begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the US elections. A single day is left. There's a 12-hour difference nevertheless, but for us at least, the 5th is just a couple of hours away. For the US, it's more than a couple of hours away, but almost a day now. A lot of developments have been happening as far as these last few days are concerned, and of course the campaigning was in full swing by the Democrats and the Republicans. A very interesting angle is a third presidential candidate, Jill Stein, who has also come up on the forefront. And why is she on the forefront? Who is supporting her? We'll be asking that question and much more to our guests in this very segment. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Palestine-Israel conflict that has now entered its 394th day. Also, as far as the condition in Lebanon is concerned, things are not moving in the right direction. A lot of talk was there as far as the ceasefire is concerned. Hamas says the ceasefire has been okayed by them, but there has been no reaction from the other side. At the same time, you have also the different comments that are coming from Netanyahu and his cabinet as well as his ministers that indicate a certain mindset as far as where to take the Middle East situation. And this is what we will discuss in our second segment. Then we are going to talk about Spain's King Felipe, who was of course visiting the calamity hit areas after an earthquake that hit, in fact floods that hit Valencia and other areas. But when he went there, he was of course not welcomed by the people who were there. A lot of them slung mud at him and his wife, and of course hurled accusations at him as well. The king of course then did post that he understood the anger of his fellow citizens, but we will discuss that as part of a story. Finally, we are going to talk about a cake festival that is happening in Birmingham, from a life-size British Queen to a Roman sea god. There is an international fair in Birmingham that is happening, which is drawing cake artists from across the world. No Taylor Swift, unfortunately, because that cake kind of did not make it to the venue. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the US elections. A single day is left. A lot of campaigning is happening, a lot of different polls, a lot of different poll results, a lot of different points of views as far as different communities in the US is concerned. The world is also looking at the US elections because a lot of countries have a lot of stake in different issues, whether it be the Ukraine conflict or others. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti. She's a foreign affairs analyst. Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha, thank you very much to have joined us. And in the studios, online, let's put it that way, we will be joined rather by Mark Meirowitz, who is a political analyst who will be joining us from the US, and he's also professor at the State University of New York Maritime College. Let's begin with the questions and let's ask our guest in the studio, Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti, about her point of view on the elections. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti, kamalaharris, Donald Trump have stayed deadlocked to the finish as far as a certain poll by the New York Times and Siena College is concerned. There is a hint that she could have ticked up in the final stretch. Arizona, I'll just highlight the 7 states and then I'll ask your point of view. Arizona, Trump's +4, Georgia, Harris +1, Michigan, Trump +1, Nevada, Harris +3, North Carolina, Harris +3, Pennsylvania even, and Wisconsin, Harris +3. So Harris is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 states are in Harris's kitty apparently, and 3 in Donald Trump's kitty. But we don't know because these are just polls, and polls, we don't know whether they're indicative of the reality of the situation, of how the polls are going to go on. How do you view these poll results, these latest poll results? There are a lot of other poll results that have also been emanating. Do they have any weightage as far as the final voter sentiment is concerned?
Thank you, Omar. It's a very interesting question, and certainly the polls are interesting, and the results are already very interesting, and we can see that slight margin is there between both of the candidates. But for me, these results of these polls are just a snapshot of those statistics, and it could change the bring the change, or probably might not bring the change, but the voters are expected. We have historically we have seen that during the 2020 election and during the 2016 elections, the polls were showing some different results, but in actual some other candidate won the elections. We have the example of 2016 election where the Trump was not being considered as a very favorite candidate after the polls, and Hillary, she was having the highest rate, but in actuality when the result came, the Trump won the elections. So for me, they are just the statistics, and they are not showing the actual sentiments of the voters. Then there is a specific majority that is called as silent majority. Mostly they don't show up, they don't show their concerns, they don't involve in any polls, and most of the time because they are in the majority, they can bring the major change in it. And there are some other voters who are late, who are not ready to show their interest till the last time comes. So we can say that these polls are not the actual, they are not going to show the actual the picture. So it's still mix up is there, and the things are not clear.
But I mean, for those people who haven't yet decided on who to vote for, does it change their mindset as to who to eventually to go for when they look at polls such as these? Yeah,
it can change, but there is another thing, that is the conspiracies in which specifically Trump is involving the others. How he was saying it's too big to rig. So probably he is inculcating this thing in the minds of the voter that obviously the rigging is there, or probably the rigging is there. So minders, they are little skeptical about it because they think that okay, there might be some rigging, or probably the polls are not right. So these speculations, these interesting things in which specifically Republicans, they are coming up, they are changing the minds of the voter. But obviously there are local concerns, because these specifically the 7 swing states, they are diverse in their demography, in their their interests, their local concerns. So probably they might change their interests, but they will always look for their own interests, their local problems related to the unemployment, inflation, immigration rights, and climate issues. Arizona is facing highest climate implications. So these are the things that might bring some change in voters' interest for their own benefit, and they are looking towards their candidates, and they are just judging them and trying to analyze how much promise they are going to fulfill their promise for it. And obviously, definitely they are going to give more emphasis to their own interest.
All right, let's begin with Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has a lot of liabilities when it comes to this campaign, whether he be targeting journalists, and of course, the Reporter Without Borders say that he has targeted around 100 times journalists in the last few months. Then we've got the way he has also been criticized by his former chief of staff, for example, John Kelly, who says he meets the definition of a fascist. We also remember what happened in Madison Square Garden when the Puerto Ricans were also, pointed out, and they were, indicated as being an island of garbage. And of course, we all know Pennsylvania has a huge percentage of Puerto Ricans. Will these liabilities have any effect on Trump's or voting pattern, or Trump's voters on voting day?
Obviously, it is going to make some difference. I previously said that he is involved in so many conspiracies and so many statements, so many, the way he has been hitting the sentiments of Latinos, and he has been hitting the sentiments of the journalist overall, and that is going to make things difficult for him. But he is carrying an agenda that is far more challenging and far more difficult to handle for Americans overall. That is the inflation and economy of America, and probably that is going to, and Trump has got, he has expressed his views and opinions that how he's going to make America great again, and how he's going to put so many tariff on China, and it's going to contain Chinese, the decoupling of the American economy from China, and how putting tariffs on China and Chinese goods. So that is something Americans are more interested in, and because they think that American economy should be strong, inflation is there, unemployment is there, and as far as Trump's election agenda is concerned, he is making so many promises on it. And yeah, there are some things, there are some other policies related to, that is going to be challenging for the immigrants and for institutions, international institutions specifically, the way he is expressing his concerns for NATO's and his future agendas for how he's going to take care of the Ukraine issue and the Middle Eastern crisis. That is something probably not be very much in the favor of Netanyahu, but that's what we are going to see in the future. But yeah, the local concerns are there, and the behavior of Trump is not, I mean, that's what my view is, that his behavior is not that much of a person who is going to represent a biggest democracy, but still the agenda he's carrying related to the economy and related to making America great again, that is something is going to make him different from Harris.
All right. Also, I'd like to understand the campaigning that has been done by both Harris and of course Trump. Looking at these campaigns, because of course now it must be for us it's the end of the day, but for them they are beginning their last day of campaigning. How have you viewed these campaigns?
As far as Harris is concerned, she is just following the path of the Democrats. I mean, most of the time there is a big hint from the policy that Obama adopted during his election campaign. There were 50 state strategy in which he was trying to connect to the 50 states on their demographic regions, their cultural integrity, and their even their religious view. That's what she's doing, and the other thing, he was of the opinion that he was trying to Obama. He used to bring celebrities on board.
All right. I mean, because this is what Kamala Harris is also doing. She's bringing celebrities on board. We will of course continue talking during the show on other issues. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, is the passing of the Army Act 1952 Amendment Bill by the National Assembly. We've been joined by Shabir Ahmed Wagra to discuss more about that. The National Assembly has adopted the Army Act 1952 Amendment Bill. Shabir, how important is the passing of this act by the National Assembly?
Yes, Omar, it is indeed a very significant development, as the National Assembly approved 3 bills related to the Pakistan Armed Services, including Pakistan Army Act Amendment Bill 2024 regarding the amendment of the Pakistan Army Act 1953 and the Air Force Act Amendment Bill 2024 regarding the amendment of the Pakistan Air Force Act 1953 and the Pakistan Navy Act Amendment Bill 2024 regarding the amendment of the Pakistan Navy Ordinance 1964. These all three bills were presented by Defense Minister Khaja Mohammad Asif in the National Assembly, and National Assembly approved all these, passed all these 3 bills related to the changes in the services, services, armed forces of Pakistan. And according to the bills, and the chiefs of all these 3 armed forces tenure will be increased from 3 years to 5 years, and other details of the bills will also be made public by the government later. But this was indeed a great significant step taken for different changes in the armed forces, and these have been done not for only one but all 3 armed forces, Pakistan Army, Navy and Pakistan Air Force. The amendments are done in all 3 acts of related to Pakistan Army Act, then Pakistan Air Force Act, and the amendment in Pakistan Navy Ordinance of 1961. So these are all amended in the National Assembly, and now these all bills will go to passed by the National Assembly, and now they will go to the Senate from after passage from the upper house of the Parliament, that is the Senate. Then they will go for sent to the President of Pakistan, and then they will become the part of become the law. But before that, they have to go to the Senate of Pakistan.
All right. Thank you very much, Shabir Ahmed Wagra, to have given us the details as far as these 3 laws that have these amendments in these 3 laws that have been passed by the National Assembly, and they will be now on their way to the Senate for acceptance and of course between the members of the Senate as well. This is the Army Act 1953 Amendment Bill, the Air Force Act, which is also the Act of 1953 and the Pakistan Navy Act of 1954, which all three have now been amended in 2024. These three have now been passed by the National Assembly and they will go now to the Senate of Pakistan. Let's move to our next story, and that concerns the Gaza and Middle East and day 394 as far as this Middle East conflict is concerned. We continue to be joined by Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti, who is a foreign affairs expert in the studios, and we will also be joined by our guest from Palestine during the course of this segment. Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha, the World Food Programme warns that the humanitarian situation in Gaza could soon escalate into famine because the food is not reaching in Gaza properly. There is a deliberate attempt to halt the aid from arriving into Gaza. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification also says that the Gaza Strip remains at a high risk of famine. Is the world watching? If it is watching, why isn't it doing the needful?
Well, this is really unfortunate that the world has got double standards. When there is some kind of war-based atrocities, let's say in Ukraine, or any other place where the Western interest is concerned, so they are always vocal. They are talking about it. They are making policies about it. Your United Nations is very concerned about it, and suddenly they are very active. But when there is no interest for the Western community and for the America, then they don't believe in humanity or human rights based actions. If we look into the food shortage and the other atrocities the people in Gaza and the Lebanon they are facing right now, I mean, it's just based on atrocities based on international human rights law, international humanitarian law. It's the violation of this conventions based on the war-based conventions, and unfortunately, United Nations is not taking notes and taking concern on it. And recently we have seen that Turkey it has become vocal about putting an arm embargo on Israel, but it's not just we are just talking and we are not taking actions on it, and that is unfortunate. From every passing day we have seen that how many lives are being sacrificed over there, and it's for no use. And as we were talking about the American election, so you have seen that how much Muslim population in America concerned about Gaza.
And that is why a lot of Arab Americans are moving towards Jill Stein, because they feel that this is an option that they have as far as the election is concerned.
Although Harris, she has been very active among these swing states, Muslim Arabs and or Middle Eastern Muslims living in the swing states. She has been talking to them and getting herself engaged in them, but they are not buying this now. And they're saying, you have been the vice president, you haven't done anything for us. So that is going to be problematic for America as well. But can you imagine that how Israeli lobby has been playing actively in America, that even
but they've always played very actively as far as the US is, even as far as the West is concerned. We've also been joined, Dr. Saiba, by Osama Muhammad Nazzal, who is our dear journalist friend who joins us from Jenin. Thank you very much, Osama, to have joined us. Osama, I'll just begin with the state as far as the health in or the hospitals in Gaza is concerned. The Kamal Adwan hospital has again been attacked. Almost all of the hospitals are now no longer in a state to function properly, and this has been confirmed by the Gazan media office, which says that they are all out of service, quote unquote. And then of course the children that are being targeted in the ICUs, they are being killed mercilessly in all of these hospitals that are being targeted by the Israelis because they feel that the so-called extremist elements are somehow somewhere hiding in these. Hasn't the situation become the direst as far as this 21st century is concerned?
Thank you very much for having me. First, the health situation, the living situation in general, not only the health sector in the northern part of Gaza, in particular the north. We are talking about Jabalia refugee camp, Jabalia the town, Beit Lahia, Beit Hanun, and some other parts. Israel ended any feature of life in that area of Gaza. Not only bombarding hospitals, but bombarding everything and making it impossible.
All right, Osama, we'll have to cut you short a little bit. Welcome back, and we're discussing the Israel-Palestine conflict, which has entered its 394th day. We were discussing with Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti about the situation and, of course, about the famine and about all the health and other related issues that have engulfed Gaza. Osama, we were discussing with you when, of course, we had to go to a break. Coming back, how do you look at the current health situation, the food, water and basic necessity situation in Gaza? There is a deliberate attempt by the Israelis to block such aid. And with that, when you look at Israel banning UNRWA as well, how do you see all of that coupled together to make the life of the already miserable Palestinians even more miserable?
Israel is ending any possibility of a human life, mainly in the northern part of Gaza. But this doesn't mean that the situation of the south is much better. Israel bombarded all the hospitals and the medical clinics in the north of Gaza, and the Palestinian medics, some of them were arrested, the others were cornered in these hospitals now, unable to provide any form of service to the patients who might have stayed there, because we know that the Israeli military attacked these hospitals and forced the injured and the patients out of these hospitals as part of the Israeli scheme to ethnically cleanse all the Palestinians from the north. When we talk about the north of Gaza today and the Palestinians' life there, we are talking about real hell on earth, life that no human being can bear or can stand. So the situation there, as you said, is miserable, desperate, no water, no food, no medicine, nothing. Only Israeli bullets, Israeli shellings, and Israeli bombs, shredding the bodies of the Palestinian children, the Palestinian women, and the Palestinian families.
All right, Osama, also when you look at the West Bank, the situation in the West Bank, it's not that rosy anyways. It's maybe a bit less intense than what we're seeing in Gaza, north and southern part of Gaza, but it's nevertheless, we are seeing raids that are happening by the Israeli military. We are seeing attacks by the Israeli settlers. 11,500 Palestinians have been arrested in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. And then, of course, the farmers whose produce was coming are deliberately being attacked with toxic gas so that their produce could not bear fruit. How do you see the situation in the West Bank?
Yeah, the situation in the West Bank is getting really from dangerous to a more dangerous situation as the Israeli occupation forces are erecting more checkpoints, cutting off the Palestinian roads, allowing the terrorist settler groups to attack the Palestinian villages and the Palestinian cities. Just last night, a group of the Israeli settlers attacked the city of Al-Bira, which is close to Ramallah, and they set fire to Palestinian vehicles and to Palestinian property. And the Israeli army was not far away from the scene of the crime, making sure that the Israeli settlers can carry out their crimes without being resisted by the Palestinian citizens whose property and whose houses were set on fire. The Israeli occupation forces also killed a 14-year Palestinian boy in the area of Hebron in the south of the West Bank, and the Israeli settlers attacked the Palestinian farmers who are picking their olive groves, and we know what olives means to the Palestinian farmers these days, especially under the tightened siege against the Palestinians. So we are talking about an all-out aggression against the Palestinian people in the West Bank and Jerusalem in an attempt by the Israeli occupation government to push the Palestinians out. The Palestinian situation, whether in Gaza or in the West Bank, is really deplorable, is desperate, and the Palestinians regrettably are facing alone the worst and the strongest, maybe, army in the Middle East in terms of military might and developed advanced weapons.
Osama, I'd also like to understand the situation as far as this peace talk or ceasefire is concerned. We had heard about the Biden peace talks, then we heard about the Egyptian brokered 2 days ceasefire. Then we are hearing from Osama Hamdan that talks between factions in Cairo have been positive, but the group has not received any kind of written ceasefire proposal. At the same time, we have this deliberate leakage of certain documents that deliberately are instigating Israelis against any such peace deal. What happens to any peace deal that could or possibly happen in the coming days? Doesn't this also show the Israeli intention of continuing their genocide in the region?
What the Palestinian people are sure of is that Israel doesn't want peace with the Palestinians. Israel doesn't want to reach any ceasefire agreement. Israel is continuing its genocidal campaign against the Palestinians in Gaza, its restriction and partial killing of the Palestinians in the West Bank, and going beyond the border of Palestine to expand its war against the people of Lebanon. Every part of Lebanon today is bombarded by the Israeli occupation war planes, which means that Israel doesn't have the ceasefire agreement or the peace on its agenda. And we know that the American administration by Biden spent billions and billions of dollars providing Israel with weapons, with missiles, and we saw the American warships coming to the Mediterranean and the American defense system coming to Israel in order to show the unlimited backing by the Americans to the Israeli government in its war, whether against the Palestinians or against the Lebanese, and if this war expands and become regional. So what is clear is that Israel, yes, is leading the war, but the Americans are providing everything for.
Osama, we will of course continue our discussion in another show, but we're a bit short of time tonight. We'll get back to you inshallah, and I hope that you'll be courteous enough to give us the time as well. Thank you very much, Osama Muhammad Nazzal, our Palestinian friend, brother and journalist from Jenin, joining us, and of course thank you very much to Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti, foreign affairs expert, to have stayed with us all during the program. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first concerns protesters who've thrown mud at Spain's King Felipe as he visited the flood hit areas in Valencia, where of course floods had created havoc and more than 200 people have been killed. A lot of angry protesters were accusing the king and the queen of not doing enough. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, from a life-size cake of Elizabeth, the Queen Elizabeth, to a Roman sea god international fair in Birmingham is bringing out the expert as far as the different kinds of cakes and how creative people can be from different parts of the country. We can see different kinds of cakes. As I said, Queen Elizabeth's cake is there. We are seeing a Roman sea god's cake as well. A Taylor Swift cake had to be brought in, but unfortunately that couldn't happen. It was withdrawn because the cake got damaged. It was a life-sized replica of the musical icon. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's news. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to us here in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.